This is the Fat Loss Pro Podcast.
Fat Loss Pro Podcast.
Discover what's needed to burn, build, and shape the body you want. You'll walk away knowing what you need to do to create results now. Chris DeFay is the authority on fat loss and getting you in shape. Cutting edge, results-based info from the world's best that unveils the curtain to quicker, simpler, no-nonsense fat burning, muscle building, and quality health.
Welcome to the Fat Loss Pro podcast. I am the Fat Loss Pro, Chris DeFay, and today I have brought on for you, again, the legendary Ryan. This episode is all on men's fat loss and physique. Now, we both have agreed that the guys get a bit of a short stick and don't get the information needed, and there's a lot of guys complaining and whinging, just not being able to get in great shape. You're stuck at that usual mediocre level, but what you've been doing hasn't been able to give you the best results yet. Now, this is for you if you want to start really making sure that you can drop body fat and get into much better shape. Before I hit play on this interview together, I just wanted to say a big thank you for putting me between your ears with the Fat Loss Pro podcast. I really do appreciate the growth that these podcasters have, and it gives me a big spur to make sure I keep producing this free content for you. I also want to make sure that you can head on over to www.chrisdufay.com. I'm going to have the show notes from all the episodes of the podcast and also the videos that I've been releasing as well for the Fat Loss Pro. Now, make sure that you get the free diets and programs that I've got there for you as well, and I've got a little bit of a bonus coming up. Everyone that's been following and that's on my VIP list, I'm going to be launching something very soon that will tickle your fancy, but you're only going to be able to get into the pre-launch and make sure to get those free bonuses if you're on the list. So I highly suggest the first thing you do is jump on and make sure that you get the fat loss diet to start off with. Now, let me hit play because there's a lot of knowledge bombs Ryan drops in this, and to tell you the truth, there's a bit of bromance going on as well, so strap yourself in. All right, Ryan, thanks very much for taking your time out again for me. Now, we've just teed this up recently, and we want to concentrate on the guys because we both think that guys get left out, and it's time to help a couple of boys pull their socks up and start looking good. And I know you're the man for this topic, so let's kick it. Actually, sorry, and before I let you go, I think it was episode 17 that we did the last one on, and I want you to give your spiel on who Ryan is and why he's so awesome again, because I'm not going to expect someone to go back and listen to that one.
Oh man, the why I'm awesome spiel. I don't want to give that again, but I'll tell you a little bit who I am. So
I tell you what you should do. You should just pre-record it, and then you can just like every time you meet someone, just go, "Hey, just listen to this."
Yeah, hold up my old ass iPhone 4 and play it in the microphone. I just finally got the dang iPhone 6 Plus. I don't have it in my possession yet, but I ordered it. I'm tired of being on 3G network. Dang it. Anyway. Who I am? Let's see. My name's Ryan, obviously. I started my career back in college. I was training people at the local collegiate gym while I was working on my degree, and those poor people were my experimentation ground. I did a horrible job with all of them. I should probably contact them all and give them all their money back because I didn't know what I was doing. I plain and simple. I was feeding them crap that, the popular stuff, because the popular stuff is very rarely the good stuff. And so I was feeding them the garbage that I was taking in from popular media, and it just was ineffective. I can honestly look back and say that my initial clients didn't get any results whatsoever. And that's sad, but that's one of the ways I started to learn. Well, from there, I started interning at a Division I strength and conditioning program in the NCAA here in the States. And then my first job out of college was as an assistant strength and conditioning coach working at a D1 program. I had interned there for a while. My boss had taken another job with the New Orleans Saints in the NFL. He's now got Super Bowl rings. And so there was a spot open. I had been working at the university for free trying to learn, and the athletes knew me, the coaches knew me, so they hired me on there. So I spent several years in that position. I coached athletes anywhere from synchronized ice skating, yes, let that sink in for a second, synchronized ice skating, all the way to track and field, to baseball, to volleyball, football, basketball, ice hockey. So I had a lot of different experiences as I was there. And when I left my tenure there, I had been promoted up to assistant director of strength and conditioning. So worked my way up there, and then out of the blue, I was sitting in my house, and I got a phone call from Charles Poliquin, and he said, "Hey," he's like, "you need to come work for me." So I promptly packed my shit and headed up to go meet up with Charles in Rhode Island. Now, the cool part about that job, I got to live in Ohio still with my wife, and I just traveled to wherever we were teaching. So I traveled to Sydney, I traveled to Sweden, I traveled to London, I traveled across the U.S. to teach for Charles, and I also developed course material and did some consultation work there, and that was a great 2 years. That was where I met you, Chris, and so for that I'm very thankful. Obviously, I had a lot of good experiences and met some sweet Australians, and
do that too well.
Excellent. And so from there, then I started my own business. I'm doing consulting gigs. I'm doing online coaching. I'm doing mentorships. I've got an ebook out there. So I'm kind of just doing the things that I enjoy doing.
That's very good. And I just want to bring it, I don't remember what it was, but I remember being blown away. What was your best ever good morning?
I did, on one of the Poliquin videos, I did a good morning. It was 483 pounds for 3 reps.
Oh,
so
that's stupid. What?
Yeah, so it was good. Yeah, it was good. Everyone has their favorite lifts, right? And I always trained that one hard because it had a positive impact on my squat and my deadlift, and spinal erectors too. Strong back makes a strong man. So I was big into those for a while. So I still do them. I haven't been that heavy in a little while, but I'll get back up there soon. I've been kind of on a pretty boy phase, where I'm trying to look good naked, and I'm not worried about how strong I am, but yeah, I'm a meathead at heart, so I got to get back to the heavy stuff.
I remember when you told me that, what your good morning was, and because I remember someone asked in the lecture that you were taking, like, what was some of your best lifts or something, and you started off saying good morning, and I was just impressed straight off, because you always hear someone say, "Oh, my bench press," or like just something gay, and I was just like, good morning. I was like, kudos, that's fantastic. This guy's serious.
I always like to max out on like strange lifts that nobody did. You know what I mean? Like, everyone squats, everyone benches, but everyone deadlifts. But I would always do I'd max out on Zercher squats where you're holding the bar in the crook of your elbows. Right? You know what I mean? Like I'd max out on some kind of crazy bench press with chains and bands. Like one of I keep a logbook of all my like personal bests, and it's kind of hilarious because one of my favorite ones, it was a bench press variation, and the weight on the bar was only like 185 pounds, and it was a personal best for 1 rep. But when you add the band tension, the chains, I had chains, bands, and straight weight on the bar. It was like over 560 pounds at the top. And so it's just, I like to do the weird stuff because I think that stimulates your body a lot more to train from a lot of different angles.
Well, I think right there, that gives you the authorities for us to start talking about men's physique. So I think straight off the gun, where do you think guys go wrong?
Oh man, there's so many ways that go wrong. But one of the first things is that you guys that are struggling to put on muscle or struggling to get in shape, stop always being on a cut. You know what I mean? You see these guys at the gym, they're 150 pounds. Hey, what are you training? Like, oh, I'm on a cut right now. 1 year later, oh, I'm on a cut right now. It's like they're always trying to cut. And when you constantly do that, when you're constantly in a fat loss phase, you're basically catabolic all the time. You're not building muscle. You're actually destroying your metabolism in the long term. So while you think you're working to get leaner, you're actually just working for a slower and slower metabolism. And so what I always tell people, you got to take some time to build your metabolism and build some muscle. And people miss out on that. And, it's tough because there's a handful of people. I always talk about this. There's a handful of physique athletes that without question have to be in shape year round because their livelihood is from photo shoots, from guest appearances. supplement deals where they have to be in shape, and that's a tricky spot to be in. But that's only like the top percent, right? Most people don't have to be absolutely shredded to the bone year round. And so I think if you take some time and work on building muscle, now that's not a license to be a fat ass. Let me get that straight. Building your metabolism does not mean stuffing Twinkies and ice cream and donuts and being on a bulk, bro. You know what I mean? I'm not advocating bulking. I'm advocating periods of time dedicated towards gradually increasing your calories. The human metabolism, Chris, as you know, is adaptable. So it will adapt with what you give it to. If I put someone on a 900 calorie a day diet, the weight's going to fly off them for about 3 or 4 weeks, if that, and then all of a sudden it's going to grind to a halt. Why? Because your thyroid responds directly to the intake of calories. So 900 calories isn't a lot. So what happens is your thyroid says, F that, it stops producing T3, it stops converting T4 to T3, you have leptin issues, and all of a sudden you're just stuck, even though you're barely eating anything. Conversely, if you're currently eating 2,000 calories a day, on average, and for the next 2 weeks you work on 2,200, and then the 2 weeks after that 2,400, and then 2,600, etc. Over time, what's going to happen is you are going to A, build muscle, and B, you're going to speed up your metabolism so that you don't have to get so drastic in your fat loss next time. So I look at, in a classic example, there's this girl that I do consulting with. She weighs 115 pounds, ripped to shreds, and at the current moment, she's eating 3,200 calories a day. On a cut, right? She's getting lean for a photo shoot, and she's eating 3,200 calories a day. Now, there's a lot of dudes out there that weigh way more than her, whose calories are way below that. You know what I mean? And so I'm a big proponent of building the metabolism. You will adapt to it. You will eventually get to a point where you can handle those high calories and not get fat.
I think it's a really good point, because I think when you first said most guys are just constantly on a cut. So in my head, that kind of like rings a bell straight away and is like, well, they're doing it wrong because they have to be on a cut for so goddamn long. They're just not getting the results. But then also by doing it right and doing what you're saying, and that you are going from a phase of, yes, okay, I'm going to be burning body fat, or now I'm concentrating on building my metabolism and building muscle, is at the end of the day, after doing it slowly, your net effect is better because, one, you'll have more muscle mass, you'll be able to intake more calories, and then you'll also be able to be leaner.
Right. Well, and you know what? And here's the thing. Well, first, before I go, what is your belief, Chris? Can you gain muscle and lose body fat at the same time? I want to hear what you think.
At the exact same moment, no, but I think in the day, you can.
Boom! I love it. That's exactly what I was going to say. All right. I love it, man.
This is just bromance.
This is bromance. This is a bromance made in heaven, man. So you get all these little nerds running around talking about, you can only lose body fat if you're in a huge calorie deficit, or you can only gain muscle if you're in a calorie surplus. At the surface level, yes, that may be true, but keep in mind, I always ask, when I'm talking to these people, I always ask them, I say, okay, person X, is it possible in 24 weeks' time that you could orchestrate your training and diet such that at the end of 24 weeks, you have more lean body mass and less body fat? And the answer is always, yes, of course. Mm-hmm. And then I say, well, why can't you do that in 24 hours then? Mm-hmm. And that's the way you have to look at it. So you're either anabolic or catabolic. You're absolutely right. At the exact moment, like right now, I'm either one or the other. Yep. For me, I always lean towards anabolic, right? So you're either anabolic or catabolic. But the sum of those processes over the course of the day could leave you at the end of the day with a little bit more lean body mass and a little less body fat. The key is, here's where people screw it up. Don't try to make it happen. Like, don't make that be your goal, because you'll just end up spinning your wheels. You should always slant it in one direction or the other. Either slanted towards muscle gain or slanted towards fat loss. And then if you get the other effect, that's icing on the cake. And I will also say, the longer you've been training and the more advanced you are, the less likely that's going to happen, or to the lesser degree.
Yeah, you get a newbie at the start and they're going to be able to burn fat and put size on straight away.
Oh, exactly. And, you know, even advanced guys can do it. It just takes a little more tweaking. I had a guy a couple weeks ago went in to get a DEXA scan, and he said the physician almost nailed him down to the table, like grilling him with questions. What are you doing? Because he gained nine pounds of lean mass and lost like 15 of body fat at the same time. And the physician's like, this is impossible. Like, I've never seen this. It's like, well, no, it's not impossible. If you train smart and you eat properly, then it absolutely is possible.
I love it. And I think that's why so many people go wrong. It's just because they're doing it incorrectly at the same time.
Exactly. Or, you get some guys that freak out if a thin film starts to cover their abs, like they freak out and go on a crash diet after 3 days of eating higher calories. Yeah. And the truth of what happens is when you're one of those perpetual shredders, or the guys that are always in cut mode, when you first take up calories, they will freak out because they're going to think that they're getting fat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that may be true for a couple weeks, but then what happens is after they stay at that calorie level for a period of time, the thyroid will adapt and they actually get leaner and start to put on mass.
Exactly. And that's when someone starts to do, it's a shitty word, but when someone starts to bulk, but they're doing it the right way, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So whenever I add calories, the first 2 or 3 days, man, I do feel fat. I'm like, man, but I hang with it, and then a week later, all of a sudden, I'm looking tighter and leaner, and I add calories up again. And that's another mistake. Let me address that. Is people in the quest to look good naked, people don't adjust their calories as they go. So, Chris, if you have 90 kilos of lean body mass, and after a training block, you push that up to 92 kilos of lean body mass, if you're eating the same diet, you're fucking up because you're eating less.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you need to push the calories up as your lean body mass goes up.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're doing it right at the same time, like we were saying before, is you should be pushing them up anyway because you're adapting to what's currently going on.
Exactly. And, the other thing you have to consider is at a high calorie level, you're getting a lot more micronutrients too. So I'd rather have someone who can initiate fat loss on 5,000 calories than someone who needs to be down to 2,000 to start losing body fat.
Absolutely.
You're going to get more nutrients. You're going to have more training. You're going to have more energy to train. That's another thing. You got to fuel your workouts. If your calories are so low that you're training like a sissy, that's worthless,
No, that's a really good point. Like myself currently, I'm 4 weeks out from a photo shoot, but where my carbs is all around my training sessions. The meal before, during my session, and the meal straight after it. And then what we were talking about before is like, can you cut and then still put mass on at the same time? Is like, well, that's exactly one way to do it.
Absolutely. People they say nutrient timing doesn't matter, and they're not looking at the full context. I am a huge proponent in intra-workout carbohydrates and proteins if the volume is high enough. There's a lot of people, even Charles. I worked for Charles for a while, and he was adamantly against intra-workout carbs, especially if your goal was to lose body fat. But my point is, weight training is anaerobic activity. So it's using glycogen anyway. You're not burning body fat anyway during the session.
Yeah.
You burn body fat from weight training with the excess post-exercise oxygen consumption that comes in the hours and days after that hard session. So I noticed a huge difference in myself and all my clients, in many of my clients, where we increase the intra-workout carbs, and all of a sudden they can train harder, they can use heavier weights, they can train longer, and it ends up giving them a better body. They look better naked. You know what I mean? And my carbs, my intra drink of choice, I like to use Pepto Pro, and I like to use highly branched cyclic dextrins because both are very rapidly absorbed. They bypass the stomach and go immediately to the small intestines due to their molecular structure, and they're awesome. They get right in the bloodstream. You don't get bloated. You can titrate like crazy. So, I mean, I had some guys on 300 grams of dextrins intra-workout, and I know that sounds like a lot. Like, if you did that with pure dextrose, you would bloat like crazy. Yeah. With the dextrins, you don't bloat at all. And so that's a guy, that would be a skinny guy that has a fast metabolism, who's naturally lean and just wants to put on muscle. That's the recipe right there.
Okay, that's a really good point. Let's do a bit of a case study scenario now. So let's say we've got a dude that needs to start putting some size on. He obviously doesn't want to be putting body fat on at the same time. His calories are super low. He's one of these dudes that are following a female diet right now. He's ripped it out of the female magazine, and that's what he's doing. What are the next steps for him?
Okay, big important thing right here, and this goes to everyone that's listening, no matter what your goal is. Make freaking small changes at first. Like, don't completely, like, here's where people screw up. They're on a 1,500 calorie a day diet, and they hear from, you or me that that's way too low, and then they go on a 4,500 calorie a day diet. Holy shit. Like, they're gonna get fat. They're gonna have digestive distress. You got to do it gradually, no matter where you are. Because remember, your metabolism will adapt to wherever you're at. So even if you should need 3,000 calories, if you're only eating 1,500 and you eat 2,000, it's too much for you at that point. So I like gradual steps. With calories, the most I go in a day typically is 200 a day, increased over what they are. So the guy that's eating 1,500 calories a day out of his Oxygen magazine is now eating 17. And we do that for a little while. Typically, I always adjust, right? You always have to measure and adjust. So I'll see how his body responds, and the next step I'll add 200 more, and we'll push that up as high as we can. Now, in emergency situations, let's say you're my client, Chris, and this could happen to you. So you're 4 weeks out from a photo shoot, so you got things firing on all cylinders. You are getting shredded. Your metabolism's cooking.
I'm constantly sweating.
You're constantly sweating, exactly. So
I had to have a shower last night in the middle of the night because I was...
Yeah, that's right. So if you call me and you're like, Ryan, like, I dropped 1.5 kilos overnight. You know what I mean? Which can happen. When your metabolism gets racing, you can drop weight really quickly. I would tell you, okay, today in your workout, you're going to have, 400 grams of cyclic dextrins and 50 grams of Pepto-Pro in your shake, because when you have drastic drops in body mass like that, you have to account for it right away. Otherwise, you'll lose muscle.
Yep.
So that's one example where I would do something extreme right away. But for the most part, it's make one small adjustment, whether that be to training, diet, supplementation, measure how it goes for a week or two, and then make another tweak. You can't go wrong that way.
Yeah.
And constantly go in that fashion. So with your guy that's 1,500 calories, I would simply add 200 calories a day every 1 to 2 weeks until his metabolism caught up, until he was in a good spot.
This is ridiculous. I think we should start the Ryan and Chris show, and then we'll just fist bump and high five each other because
I think we should.
Stuff. The whole entire time, it's the same stuff. I love it.
If I could chest bump through my computer screen, I would.
Maybe we should do a video podcast. That would be hilarious.
Hey, let's do it. So, yes, my whole thing is if you decide to be anabolic, then damn it, be anabolic. Don't be wishy-washy. People say they want to gain mass, and the second they may not even look fat, or they may have not even measured any more body fat, but the second they start to feel fat, they instantly go on a shred. It's like, no, forget that, man. Like, you need to spend some time putting the work in. It takes time for the body to change, especially if you want it to be a lasting change. Sure, it's, I can get somebody ready in 8 weeks for a photo shoot, but I'd much rather take longer and do it more slowly.
I think that's a really good point. I think that's also where my pet peeve comes from with like people using like the calorie calculators and all that jazz online.
Yep.
Is you've got the dude out of the Oxygen magazine on 1,500 calories. He plugs in a couple of numbers and suddenly realizes he should be eating 3,200 calories, and then suddenly jumps on a diet to match those numbers. And then lo and behold, he gets fat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it happens. The metabolism is very sensitive to change, and you have to be delicate with it. And that's why, those calculators, here's the thing. Those calculators are nice for giving an idea of where someone should be, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where you need to be right now. Basically, if you go, my advice is if you go on those calculators and you find out what your calorie range should be roughly, and you're far away from it, take time to gradually progress towards it. Don't go right to it. So it's a good general guideline, but you always want to start where you're at and not where you need to be.
All right. And then, so let's flip it around. Let's say we've got the guy and he wants to cut. What are the steps he takes? Is it the exact reverse in what you were just saying then?
Maybe, but how fat are we talking here? Like, what are his stats?
You know what? I see a lot of guys, and they're probably sitting at about the 12 to 13% range, and they just struggle to try and get into the single digits.
Sure. Well, the first thing, obviously, Chris, is you have to have some kind of consistency in the meal plan. So from what I've found, those 12 to 13 percenters that quote unquote doing everything, bro, to get lean, but aren't getting lean. Typically, if you grill them hard enough, you'll find out, oh, he goes out every Friday and Saturday night and has 6 beers with the boys each night, for an additional 1,800 calories a week of pure alcohol. Or, he doesn't actually know how much protein he's getting, or he doesn't, he's got treats slipping in. So at the 12 to 13% range, typically it's just a matter of a hard-nosed cleanup, like getting everything in order, being consistent. Once you're consistent, then it's about making tweaks. And what I actually do, the first thing I do is I push calories up. I know it sounds crazy, but coach, I'm trying to lose body fat. No, we're going to take calories up. And the reason is I want to see if they are actually under eating for their metabolism. Yep. And so the way I do it, if someone's eating, let's say he's eating 2,000 calories, I will push him up to 2,200 a day and see how he looks and how he feels after 2 weeks. I'll say, no matter what, do this for 2 weeks. Even if you feel like you're getting fat every day, do it for 2 weeks and then report back. At the end of 2 weeks, if he goes, you know what, I started off, I felt like I was getting fatter, but now, man, my energy in the gym's good, I actually look a little bit leaner, then we'll either hover there or we may increase calories a little bit more. Now, if they actually do get fatter by bumping calories up, which can happen, I've had it happen before, then we start to slowly make manipulations. Now, with fat loss, the first step I do is increase activity. Yeah. Calories to me are very precious, and I'd rather not cut them if I don't have to. And so the first thing I do, if let's say it's weight training 4 days a week, instead of manipulating calories, I might add in just one interval session per week. Run that for 2 weeks. See how it goes. Check in again. Is he leaner? Has he dropped any body weight? Does he still have good energy and strength in the gym? If things are still progressing, then we don't need to make any changes at that point. If things stop progressing, then we need to make some more tweaks. In this case, I'd probably add another interval session. Run that for a few weeks, see how it goes. Then at that point, he's doing 5 lifts, 2 interval sessions. We may look at dropping calories down a little bit. And then I kind of go back and forth in that fashion in terms of increasing activity, taking away calories, changing the macros too, for sure, because macro split will matter quite a bit depending on the body. Some people seem to really, really need a lot of carbs to get lean, and other people actually need, to be away from carbs to get lean. So it takes time to figure out. I don't know. How about you? Do you tend to get leaner with carbs or without in your plan?
Do you know, it was really funny. I used to be stuck at, say, that 11, 12% mark. And that was when I was like super low carb. And the only way it was for me to get lean was to having to put those carbs in.
Crazy how that works, right? So sometimes the 10 licks of a dried prune rule is bullshit. So yeah,
I think we both know exactly what that is. Yeah, that's
a bit of an.
I completely agree.
That's a bit of an inside joke. Well, what's interesting is if you look at the research data on how the thyroid adapts, pretty much regardless of body size, if you drop under 120 to 150 grams of carbs a day, you will ramp down. You will down-regulate conversion of T4 to T3, making your metabolism slower. Now, that's for longer-term dieting. So there's nothing wrong with going low-carb here and there, like a couple days in a row or maybe a week or two in a row. But, really long-term, it's especially for guys that are on the edge, I find that boosting carbs is the way to go. Yeah. Now, for a super fatty, if you're 30%, the ketogenic diet is one of the best diets out there for you, in my opinion. If you are 12%, I'd probably look at boosting your carb intake. Again, around training, it's very important. People always say that nutrient timing doesn't matter. It matters exponentially, Chris. Like when you weight train, you have these little bastards called glucose transporters, glucose transporter 2 and 4. And basically they're like windows, okay? And they sit in the middle of your muscle cell. and they don't do shit, right? Then you work out, and these windows pop to the surface of the muscle cell and basically open up and say, bring on the sugar, right? So it basically allows, it basically ensures that nearly all the carbohydrates you take around training time go towards restocking muscle glycogen, even in the absence of insulin, which is huge because when people are trying to drop body fat, you don't want to store those in your fat cells. So insulin sensitivity, it's funny, everyone thinks that insulin sensitivity means that you take all your carbs towards the muscle and none towards the fat. But when you're insulin sensitive, your fat cells are sensitive too. Yeah. So timing your carbs around the workout makes perfect sense for ensuring that it goes to fuel activity and to restock muscle glycogen and nothing else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a ramble there.
No, that was good. That was good. Hang on. I've got another good point. What about getting someone from, they say they've just dipped under into single digits, right? So we've got the 12 to 13%er. We've ramped him back up and he's gotten leaner. But then the beast starts to change. Then what?
Oh, yeah. Okay. The single digit, it is incredibly hard to get, getting down to 8% is pretty easy, to be honest. In fact, most people can do it really without even counting calories, just having a general idea of macro intake, making sure their nutrients are timed properly. When you're trying to get super shredded, the calorie equation becomes huge. The biggest key to getting lean when you're under 10% body fat is to ensure that you left enough room in your diet when you started, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because once you're at that level, you have no choice but to peel calories back. No choice. Now, if you're already so low in your calories at that point that taking them back poses a health risk, then you probably screwed up. You should have started at a higher calorie level in your initial preparations. And so, again, I still will use carbs, but I will be more aggressive with carb cycling. So I may go, if you're my client and you're 7% and you want to be 5%, I may do 3 days in a row with the only carbs being 30 grams intra-workout and the rest being, proteins and vegetables. And then that next day would be a carb up day. So getting more aggressive with cycling periods, all while maintaining lower and lower calories. The other thing that is very important is the periodic refeed, because at that point you don't have very much leptin left. So leptin is high. Leptin is a metabolism regulating hormone, and it's highest in people that have a lot of body fat. If your leptin levels are low, it can actually downregulate your metabolism, meaning you'll burn less calories. So guys that are lean need more frequent boosts in calories. So you may be on 1,500 calories a day or 1,900 or whatever, and then I may twice a week boost you up to 4,000 just because to boost that that metabolic rate. So it's tricky. There's a lot of different tricks and tweaks once you get to that point. But
do you find, sorry Ryan, can I jump in, mate? Do you find that most people take the piss with this refeed because they really don't actually need it? Like they're more sitting on the 12 to 15% mark for a male, and they're like, oh, I need to refeed, I need my cheat meal. And then it's like, no, sucker, you need to diet.
Exactly. You know what? I agree 100%. So many people, if you're, I'd say 10 to 12% body fat would probably benefit from, a once weekly refeed. If you're above 12% body fat, you really don't need it. At that point, you just need to focus on better eating habits. Now, there's things like the psychology of diets, and we could get into all that, and lifestyle change. But I know you, and I know you personally, you're more interested in getting the most shredded. Behavior modification is not, if I told you to go eat a brick, you would do it to get leaner, right? So,
Happily.
For those types of people, if I'm dealing with someone that's, maybe not in the fitness industry and they just want to get better, then yeah, cheat meals can be valuable because it keeps them on the leash for the rest of the week. But for someone like you, yeah, shoot, you don't really need it until you're actually leaner. And then, even then, I only use them in two instances. One, if you've completely plateaued out, so we've you've had 2 weeks with no change on the calipers. And the second reason is if you have a drastic drop in body fat, or not body fat, if you have a drastic drop in body weight. So if you're down 2 kilos in one day, and you tell me that, I'll say, all right, go get some ice cream, some pizza, whatever, cheeseburger, like let's load up.
No, and that's it. It's funny because I'm going to say that's 100%, and that's what happened to me last week. Was I dropped a kilo in 6 days, and then the next day I jumped back on and I was another kilo lighter, and then I had to have a cheat meal that night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very delicate process. It's crazy how things happen like that when you are just so metabolic, when you're just a metabolic furnace, you know what I mean? Like I had a buddy that did a bodybuilding show, and he's a guy, he's never been like one of those pretty boys that like really like is super concerned about his abs, but he's always had abs.
Yeah.
But he eats a ton year round. So like his maintenance calories, he eats like 5,500 a day. And I remember when he was prepping for this show, it like 3 to 4 times a week he was going for burger, fries, and milkshake because his weight would just drop real quick because he had such a good metabolism.
Yeah.
So he said everyone else, like, because a bunch of the guys at the gym were doing the same show, and he said everyone's like, what the hell, like, how are you eating this every night while I'm eating like fish and broccoli and rice? And it's just, he's a metabolic furnace, like sometimes you got to do that. So
was he getting all sweaty?
Yeah, all sweaty all the time. I'm the same way. Like when I work to get really lean, I'm sweating constantly.
I'm so lucky that I don't have video on right now because my grey singlet is just saturated.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
No, it's not.
My house is an ice box. I'm a little worried for my baby girl that's coming in a couple weeks because our house is cold.
Right. That is so funny. Lauren last night was giving me so much shit because I've got the aircon on as low as possible. And she's obviously got like all the blankets on, and I'm like just sprawled. I'm just like, I'm dying.
Yeah. Exactly, man. I'm looking forward to seeing your photo shoot pictures. That's awesome. Chris, there's one more thing I kind of want to touch on for people looking to look better naked. And what I like to tell people is I think you should view your training year in like blocks of time. Like don't do the same damn thing all the time. Like you talk to some guys, they're on the same split that they were on a year ago, and that's the same split that they've been on the past 4 years. Their workout structure is identical year in and year out. And you end up spinning your wheels. The body's adaptable, right? So what I always tell people is, sometimes sit down and have a bird's eye view of your entire training year in terms of what you're going to accomplish. So one of the things for guys that want to look good naked, I say 12 weeks of maximal strength work, like powerlifting oriented work. And I know it doesn't make sense. People go, well, why? That's more about weight and strength, not how you look. Yes, but it provides a tremendous foundation for your bodybuilding purposes later. I've never seen anyone that can bench press 500 pounds that has a tiny chest. Yeah. So it's good to work on that for small chunks of time. So you do a 12-week strength block, then a 12-week hypertrophy, like bodybuilding focus, more of a traditional bodybuilding split, followed by 12 weeks of weak point specialization where you're working if your shoulders aren't up to par, you work your shoulders 4 to 5 times a week and put the rest of your body on maintenance, and then another 12 weeks of cutting to really prep. And that way, it's just enough change every 3 months to keep your body moving forward and not staying stagnant.
That's perfect. And I think so many guys need to realize that as well, because they might be slightly changing their workouts, but it's still in the same realm and creating the same stimulus as what they just did before.
Well, it's funny because you have polar opposites, right? You got the program hopper who does a new program every 2 days. Like he reads on the internet and changes programs on a dime. Then you have the guy that has literally been on the same program since he started lifting weights, and you got to find a happy medium in there.
That's so true. It's fun. I always laugh when I get a new client come to me and then I ask, I was like, okay, so what's your training history been like? Okay, so how long have you been doing that for? And you're like, 12 months. Oh, and you've had no change. Okay.
That's why you look exactly the same.
Exactly. No, so true. So true. Okay, perfect. What's one more takeaway point that you can give for the dude that wants to get incredibly good looking? kind of look like yourself.
The best tip is to have parents that are my mom and dad. No, you know what, Chris?
Where do you think genetics comes into it? Do you think it's only in the very, very like 1% of the very top?
No, you know what? Genetics are a huge part to an extent. At the extremes, genetics are a huge part. So all the pro bodybuilders, the freaks that look like the myostatin cow, they all have the myostatin gene mutation where, and so all of them, if you test their genes, those guys all have a genetic modification that allows them to grow seemingly endlessly. Conversely, there's also something, I forget the exact number of the gene, but it's basically a non-responder gene, which basically means like they can do whatever they want and they're really not gonna change their bodies that much. That's not, they can change some, but they're never really an appreciable change. So in those extremes, genetics matter. It's probably like the top 0.1% and the bottom 0.1%. In the middle, though, it's kind of fair game. Genetics matter a little bit. So especially in like physique, right? So if you have narrow clavicles and wide hips in physique, you're going to struggle. So that matters to an extent. But with that being said, genetics should never be an excuse. It's a bullshit excuse that people use. That and the whole steroids thing are two excuses that people use when they feel inferior because they don't know what they're doing and they haven't gotten results themselves. Plain and simple. Yeah, that's that.
No, that's perfect. And what do you think belief comes into? Like, how powerful do you think someone, if someone is like, oh no, I just can't get in shape, and I'm just one of those fatties, and that's just their deep down beliefs is that's what it is. Do you think that actually plays a big part of their physique changing?
Oh, incredibly. I call it you remember on Sesame Street that Eeyore, the hi bird, like always kind of like down in the dumps, like I'm sick, blah 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 blah. Like I call those Eeyore clients, basically just always mope and piss and moan. You know what? Your mindset and attitude determines almost everything. If you've ever met, you think about like the group of Navy SEALs, they just made a movie about them. 4 dudes that held down like 200 guys. That's mindset right there.
What was that called? Then there was only one dude standing at the end of the thing?
Yeah.
They got messed up.
Yeah, but like that's mindset. That dude knew that he was the baddest mofo on that block and was not going to let anything happen. And look what happened. You know what I mean? And you see it all the time with physique. If you've ever trained with a true animal or someone who is truly successful at what they do, you will notice an air about them, an air of confidence that when they train, that like nothing's going to stop them. It matters a ton. Your mindset is absolutely critical, and that goes to losing body fat, gaining muscle, working around an injury even. If you get hurt, I actually 5 days ago I just had my 4th shoulder surgery, believe it or not. And I could sit here and mope and go, well, I'm injured. Well, no, I'm moving the shoulder. I'm training the heck out of my legs. I'm training the other arm like a demon. I'm viewing it as this is my opportunity to work on my weaknesses, not like, oh, I'm hurt again, So yeah, mindset's critical. But yeah, consistent.
Yeah, I'm so happy you said that.
Yeah, thank you. But consistency too, Chris. I'd say that's my parting words. And everyone says it. It's a boring thing to say, but people aren't really listening because the more people I meet, they're still not being consistent. So if you're not getting leaner, ask yourself, how long have you been 100% dead on in your diet plan? If it hasn't been any longer than 3 or 4 weeks, then that's where you're lacking. That's why you're not getting results. If you want to put on muscle, ask yourself honestly, how long has it been since you've actually put weight onto your core lifts? Like how long has it been since you've put 50 pounds on your deadlift? How long has it been since you put 50 pounds on your deadlift? Because those are markers, or on your bench press, because those are markers for muscle gain. And so you got to look at those things at the very simplistic core of it, to gauge progress and track it.
Yeah, no, perfect. Some serious knowledge bombs getting dropped right there. I love it.
Thank you, brother.
All right, before I let you go, Ryan, I want you to tell the listener in how they can get in contact with you and learn more about your awesomeness.
Oh, thank you. So I have a website, www.thefatlosssolution.com/blog. I post blog videos there, sometimes articles, sometimes workouts. There's also an ebook that I wrote at www.thefatlosssolution.com. And then I also do mentorships. Anyone that's interested in a mentorship can email me at athleticfitnessconsulting@hotmail.com.
That's it. Highly recommend all of that, especially the mentorships.
Thanks, man. Mentorships are fun. Yeah, mentorships are fun. Basically, I take young up-and-coming coaches, and I kind of guide them through some of the best educational pathways. I'm a firm believer that there's not only one good source of information, that it should come from many sources. So when people come to me, I will give each session, we have an hour-long Skype talk over covering a single topic that they want to cover. Then I assign them a work assignment, so they may have to design a program, then they have to design a diet. I give them a reading assignment, and then and so that's how it is every time. So I get to give them all the best reads in strength and conditioning and nutrition. I get to kind of hold their hand as they write programs, and I'll correct them and make changes so they can actually see it while they're doing it. And then we talk over all kinds of questions. That's kind of what my mentorships are about.
That's so powerful. I wish 10 years ago we went back in time and then you came to me and do my mentorship, because
I'll tell you what,
exactly what coaches need.
I know. I wish I had it too. I had to read a lot of shitty books to come up with the good books.
I've had to go through a lot of crap and waste a lot of time to be able to get to like where we are now. And that is how to fast track it. Have a proper mentor.
Yeah, so it's something I enjoy doing. It's fun. It's fun for me, and I hope so far all the clients say it's been excellent for them as well. It's propelled their careers, so I'm happy.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate you taking the time, mate, and I know we're going to be talking a lot more very soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
This has been another jaw-dropping podcast from the Fat Loss Pro, Chris DeFay. After subscribing to the Fat Loss Pro podcast,
go to www.chrisdefay.com
to get your free fat loss diet, training programs, insights, and more to burn